I'm saying hello to everyone. Hi, Fabilia. Hi, Brandy. Feel like it's been a long time since I've seen everyone. Hi, Dominique.
All right, we're live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's 5:30 and time to dive into another week of Careers in Code. We are currently in Module 6. This is the second week of Module 6, week number 13, studying React. Your instructor for last week and this week is Joey Buczek, and he will continue on next week, which would be React for week number 14. Also, as your teaching assistant for this week and next week is Caitlin Warboy. And we have a guest speaker tonight. His name is Josh Maris, and his presentation is entitled A-Frame, a web framework for building VR experiences. We have presentation slides for you. The links for those are in Slack as well as in the Zoom chat. Feel free to click on those so that you can pull up the information. And with that said, Joshua, I'll go ahead and turn the Zoom channel over to you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to share the presentation from my screen here. And just a quick pulse check, give me a thumbs up in the video or in the chat if you can see the presentation. Just wanted to, I wanted to try and see everybody's screen when you do the project, but I guess it's not possible, maybe because I'm in a web browser. But this is not obviously my presentation. I borrowed this from the A-Frame website because it explains things really well and is already set up and has a really good visual. So A-Frame is a web framework, obviously, for building VR. You can also build 3D scenes for the web. You don't need to be using a VR headset in order to use it. And I like it because it makes it as simple as writing HTML. You can write tags for the components and attributes for the properties of the components.
Joshua, I think we lost your screen share. Can you share again?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I clicked this. I thought I had the menu there. Okay, if I lose it again, I'll just share the screen, but I'm going to try it with the tab one more time.
Okay, we can see it now.
Okay,
well, I can see it now. How about everyone else? Okay. All right. Yep. We've had someone respond that they are able to see it. Okay. You can go ahead now.
All right. So obviously one of the first things that come to mind when you're building in 3D for the web is going to be virtual reality. You can build for virtual reality without having to use a whole program such as Unity. And you can just write, as I said before, code that's similar to HTML. And you can use it with various devices. You've seen headsets that use, for instance, a cell phone, such as the Cardboard or the Samsung headsets, the Google Daydream. You've also seen products like the Oculus or the Vive headsets, the PlayStation. I don't guarantee that A-Frame works on all of those, and obviously this slide's a little bit dated, so some of these are a little bit older actually, so you'll see newer headsets out in the wild. But one of the things I love about A-Frame is that you can use it with the Cardboard headsets without having to do anything extra. Once you build the scene, there's actually a button you can click on to bring it into Cardboard. And as I say, you don't need to use a program like Unity. You don't have to have an app store as a gatekeeper. You don't have to do a complicated installation. You just need a browser and a phone, really. And then, like I say, a cardboard headset like that is $1. A nicer headset can be $20, or an Oculus headset. You can get those for $200 to $300, on up to $1,600 if you really want to develop something that's full-fledged, like the Vive or the Oculus headsets. So the difference with A-Frame, obviously, it's not as closed, it's open. You can see the code, you can interact with other people's code. It's connected. There is a module that you can check out on Glitch. I'm going to introduce you to Glitch in a little bit for networked A-Frame. So there are already a lot of experiments with A-Frame built with networking integrated so that you can have interactive two-way experiences, things like communication. One of those is Mozilla's own hubs. I didn't mention at the beginning, A-Frame was developed by Mozilla, which you know from the browser Firefox and a lot of other web technologies. And the other thing is that you get the instant response. You can prototype something in A-Frame and then have it instantly viewable in a web browser or right on your phone. You just have to send a link. The nice thing about Glitch is you can prototype that and have it up in a web browser. Have it running on the web so that other people can view it. So A-Frame uses WebVR. I'm not sure if this particular slide is out of date. I believe they are using the WebXR API, which WebXR refers to a lot of different technologies that work together for virtual, augmented, and mixed reality, such as the HoloLens. And there again, one more outdated part on this slide. You've got an old icon for Microsoft Edge. You've got mobile polyfill, which is nice. You can use a lot of different browsers on mobile in order to view your scene in 3 dimensions, and then to use it in like a cardboard device. And that's there's a lot more to this slide set, but I just wanted to show you a couple more things. So the basics of A-Frame are, as I say, you can start off with right in your HTML. You add the script tag to load the A-Frame library. Can you see the highlights as I'm doing them, or is that just something that I see? If I highlight text here, can you see that?
I'm able to see it.
You see me highlight?
Yeah,
okay.
And one of the students responded that he's able to see it.
Okay, good. That's awesome that you can see that too. So as you see here, you see 2 tags for a scene, and that forms sort of like the div for our 3D scene. So everything that happens in A-Frame happens between those 2 tags, just as you can have a lot happening inside of a div. So you can have a lot of content there. And then the primitives in A-Frame are such like a box, which is a cube, a cylinder, which obviously is a can-shaped object, a sphere, which is a ball-shaped object, and a plane. And this is the most basic scene, pretty much the most basic scene you can use in A-Frame. The nice thing about the sky is you can, it's like the background of your whole 3D scene. So that is, if you've used a skybox, if you've ever built a skybox in something in 3D before, you can use a sky, or you can build an object around your scene and then use a texture on that. But for just to get going, you can use a sky with a certain color and get that as a result. The rest of this gets pretty deep into the entity component system. If you want to learn a lot more about A-frame, I can recommend some different projects that are out on the web. For now, I wanted to go ahead and go to glitch.com. So that's the second link. And, oh, I'll have to share that tab. Give me.
I just want to let you know, oh, okay, then I was going to let you know that we weren't able to see your screen. Okay, it popped back up again.
Okay.
Yes. And I also wanted to ask you, we've had a couple of questions come up that were directly related to a couple of your slides. Do you want to wait to the end and answer them, or can you take a couple of questions now?
An origami headset, I like that. Oh, so the A, I believe, I heard the story recently. The A in A scene and A box, they just needed to come up with a unique name for things in A-frame. And so they started off with A dash, just a prototype. You know how naming things is one of the hardest problems in CS, as they say. So they named everything A box, A sphere, A sky, and it just kind of stuck. As I recall, I might be wrong about that. I might be thinking about something else, but so it just kind of stuck as I recall, but don't hold me to that.
And there was one other question about the cardboard headset. Some of us were wondering if that is literally a reference to a cardboard headset.
Yeah, so that is, somebody Googled it, and that really is the original, the OG cheap VR headset that you fold up. You could make it basically out of a pizza box if you could clean the cheese and grease off of it, and just cut it out and form it to shape and add a couple lenses. And there were a lot of unique ways to add some kind of a clicking device. I actually have one at home that's a Viewmaster. It's if you remember having a Viewmaster with a disc that had all of the images in a ring around it, you would slide that in, and then you would, I'm trying to remember which side the button was on, but you know what I mean. So that actually taps the screen in that. I have one that's actually made out of cardboard, and there's some capacitive tape or some because the screen is capacitive, it's just conductive tape that's fabric, but it has enough conductive components in it so that the electricity in your finger that usually activates the touch screen travels down the tape to the screen. One of the original ways that it was done was using the magnetometer that was available in a lot of Android phones. So there would be a magnet on the inside and then a washer on the outside. So you would move the washer to click on things. So I think it was really neat how they came up with so many ideas early on to try and address some of the issues with making it interactive. My kids love the cardboard apps. We've recently given them our old iPhone 7 so they can finally load some of the ridiculous headsets that I've bought over the years and play with the apps in there. So if you have one, you can prototype for that. And if you don't, but you have a decent phone and you don't keep it in your case like I do, you can slide that into a Google Cardboard. You can get those for a couple of dollars. And like I say, you can also get a VR headset off the shelf at Walmart for 20 or slightly more. Or if you want, you can load one in Oculus or another inexpensive headset. It looks like the competition, HTC Vive, didn't go the route of providing a consumer headset this time around. So it may be that Facebook, which owns Oculus, will own that space for a while.
Okay, thank you for that. So for the sake of time, if any other questions come up, we will save them for the last 5 minutes for the Q&A session, but thank you for taking the time to answer those too.
You're very welcome. So back on this tab here, you can see that I can actually already interact with this here. If you were to load this page in your phone, you would see, actually you do see a VR button here that will take you into a VR headset if it's connected to your computer, or if you're on your phone, it may be a cardboard icon, and you can click that, well, tap that, slide your phone into your cardboard headset, and then you'll be transported into the scene. And in fact, if you load this on your phone without a headset and you just swing your phone side to side, the whole scene will move within it. So what we're going to do is, if you're on that page, you can click the Remix Your Own button down here. And you get a unique name for your project, and it will load all of the files from the example. And you'll see that there's not a lot in here. You've got, if you want to load a model, you can put it in assets. I'm not going to cover a lot here, just try to show you how to edit some of the properties so you can see some changes. License and readme, and then index.html, and of course that is loading just like in the slide show there, just loading the library directly. And if we then click show next to the code, we've got it right here. So a couple of the things that we can change, if you have experience with the hexadecimal representation for colors in CSS for your HTML project so far, you can go ahead and change the color from a slate blue on that box to a much greener box. We can change the rotation. It's a little different. And you can change the position. So if we wanted to move that box behind the cube, move that box behind the sphere rather. Might have to push it a little farther. Oh, and of course I'm on Y. So one of the nice things about Glitch is that not only can I host my code, I can make a static web page and have it hosted and other people can see it. I can also find a project that does the basics of what I need. I can go into tools here. Hi, Matt. And it actually tracks my changes so I can go back in time. So if I wasn't sure what my original position for the box was, I can change that there. And it's at -1. I want to move it along the z-axis. Right. Yes, yes. Okay. So if I want it behind the sphere, I can do -6 there. And I'm using if you're familiar with 3D games such as Quake, Doom, Halo, you can use WASD or left, right, forward, and back cursor keys to go around the scene. So I can say -6 wasn't far enough. Let's go -8. Now it's firmly behind the sphere. And a lot of the attributes apply to everything in A-frame. So if I want my scene to rotate, I think I have this right. if I don't have this right. Let me go back to the presentation. Oh, I did want to show you this, and I'm sorry that I forgot what part I wanted to stop at. So here are some example projects from the presentation. So some things that people have already built that obviously are a bit more advanced. Math World is one of my favorites. You can graph a 3D representation of a mathematical equation right in VR. ARJS plus A-frame, this is building AR models that you can view on a marker in the real world. This part's a little more advanced, but here are some of the attributes that exist in pretty much every one of the primitives and really almost everything in A-frame. And then a lot of ones that are a little more specific to other components, like you see particle system, leap motion controls, if you've seen the leap motion headset. So these get a little bit more specific. And then a curated collection of A-frame components. This is a video or a GIF, so I don't control how that scrolls.
Just want to let you know that you have about 9 minutes left for your presentation. I know you had
Sure.
a hands-on activity for the students, and we wanted to leave a few minutes at the end for question and answer. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, for hands-on, I just I wanted you to go ahead and open the link there to the template on glitch. So that's the glitch.com/tilde A-frame.
And I'll repaste
It looks like that
the
got
link in
cut off.
Slack.
On our phones preferably, right? Because that's what I've been doing.
Oh, you can bring it up on your phone. If you
right.
do, you'll only be able to view it. You can edit code on the phone, but it's not comfortable.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I did download a Google virtual gizmo that I had to have with it. So, all right.
Okay. And like I say, if you once I click on, oh, I don't even have to click on show. I don't think you can see my address bar. Let me show my whole screen here. So here's the whole window now, and you can see the mess that I've got going on. So once you can see the whole window now. I don't see a frame around it. Sharing the screen. So you can see the project in here with the code.
I can see it, Josh.
So can I.
Okay, good. So this is, if I click show from within here, firstly, just let me know if you're not there yet, but the link, I'm just gonna paste that link again, because the E got cut off. So right there at the bottom, if you click on that link, you'll be brought here. And you can see, you can go ahead and just view it in full screen. And you should be able to exit. Can't you? Oh yeah, that came up in a new tab. Pardon me. And then you can click remix your own. And this will make a whole new one for me again. Okay, is anybody not able to get there? Where you have a project with its own name that is,
I wasn't
has
sure
all-
where I'm supposed to find it. I didn't
The
have
link?
the menu on the left. No, the projects.
oh. So can you share your screen just so I can try and help you find it?
Let's see here. Where am I? Gotta move these guys out of the way. There we go. So where, oh no, this is not where, here I am.
And for everybody who is already there, just go ahead and you can click show here and tell it to open in a new window if you want. But what I
Yeah,
was doing was having it
yeah.
next to the code so it was all in one window here, all in one tab. So I
Oh,
could see it
okay.
side by
Yeah,
side.
show, and then I didn't know what to do from there.
Okay, so you do have that?
Can you still see it?
Okay.
It's just static. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything though.
It's you, Carolyn Ann? I
Carolyn-
don't see
Carolyn, yep.
your desktop. Are you
Oh.
able to share your desktop? Oh,
I
there we go.
was. Yeah.
I see it now.
And you can call me
Oh.
Carolyn. I mean, I do the whole name because it's a special, there's a story, but you can just say Carolyn. That's fine.
Sure. So yeah, so you're there.
Yeah, but
I
then
don't
what do I do? It's just sitting there.
All
I
right,
gotta
so
get
you
my
have
cardboard
gone,
goggles.
you've gone into full screen. You can close that tab or
Oh,
just
yeah.
click the tab just to the left of it, and that'll bring you back to the project where you can work on it.
So,
Oh, well, hold on. You're gonna wanna press Command and Shift together, and then press the T key. Can you do that? You just close the tab that you wanted to keep. There you go. So the one you want to keep is the one just to the right of the tab that you have open now. There you go.
mhm.
So there. Now there's the project.
This is my own.
Right. So see where it says, and I forget, I'm logged in all the time.
HTML.
So let me take a step back and apologize because I'm always logged into Glitch.
You're great. I just didn't have that side menu. That's all.
Right. So you have a button that says Remix to edit, and you can go ahead and click that. I don't think you have to create a login, but if you have a GitHub login, you can use
Remix.
that to log in and save all your projects under the same account that way.
Remix to edit.
Yeah, it's to the right, all the way to the right of the screen there.
Oh, that's where the chat is in the way. And this other thing is in the way. No, that's not it. Oh, there it is. I need different glasses. Okay, sorry.
Okay. No problem.
You can now edit. So got it, right? I just got it. And then I can have some
Yeah.
fun. And it's
And if
not
I'm-
HTML, but it's like it.
Right, it is, I mean, it is HTML. If you go into index.html there,
Mhm.
the A-frame components are not obviously part of standard HTML. This
Right.
framework adds those tags so that you can write it right inside your HTML file. You'll see that it's
Oh, it's
all
really
between the
long.
body tags, the opening and closing body tags.
Yep.
So you can go ahead and one thing you're going to want to do, Carolyn, is click Show at the top. It's at the, yeah, there you go. And next to the code, just so we can see the code next to the scene.
Works for me. Get rid of.
Yep.
And I don't really need this side menu right now, so I can get rid of that for now. Okay.
Right, yeah, we don't need to browse all the
Now we
files.
don't
at
need
this
to create an
point. Yeah,
account just yet.
good call there.
Cool.
And then you can go ahead and edit the position, the rotation, the color of any of those three objects in your scene. Well, four objects because one is the
Using the
plane.
code. Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're very welcome. You did great.
So we have about a minute left. Were there any other questions? And while we're waiting to see if there are any last questions, Josh, did you want to leave your contact information in the chat or a LinkedIn handle or
Sure, yeah.
email? Okay.
I am, what the heck am I? I am on the Careers and Code chat. I believe I'm Joshua ALM there. And on Twitter, I am Hey I Try, and I am pretty much everywhere I am one of those two things. I am trying to set up a Twitter where I don't repost everybody else's political posts and complaints and things like that. So if you want to follow me, I'm Maris Joshua as well on Twitter. Those are two of the best places to find me. That's really where I follow other developers, and I try to share my work when I come up with something creative. It's been a while, so I really appreciate you having me.
Joshua, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and giving us another take on how to make our HTML websites more dynamic. Students, you all had great questions. And if you have any questions for Joshua, just make sure that you reach out to him through one of the contact pieces of information that he left in the chat. And that concludes our presentation for today. Thank you so much. Let's give him a big round of applause, thumbs up, reaction in the chat. That was great.
Thank you all. And I am dying to talk about creative coding and VR. So definitely get a hold of me if you feel like chatting up about that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
All right, and now we'll turn the reins over to Joey, who's ready to dive into week number 2 of React.
Right, all right. Who's ready to do some more React? All right, so before we get into what we're going to go over for this week and next week, does anyone have any questions or anything they want to talk about in regards to what we went over last week? Or any questions that you may have on the homework or anything like that? I figure we'll start out with any concerns you might have or anything we need to recap on real quick before we move forward. That way we're all kind of on the same page.
If it's possible, hi Joey, can you go over props, like brief props?
Props, sure, we can do that. Let's see. While I'm loading a tab with the code sandbox repo, any other questions we want to queue up while I'm getting this ready? I was planning on being in VS Code all day today and for this week, so I'm just trying to open this tab up real quick. Just props for now. Having trouble with weekend assignment. We can go over, are there anything specific, not the assignment itself, but anything specific inside the assignment? Use state. So we have props and state.
Yeah, I was still typing, sorry, Joey. Yeah, I think maybe like a one-on-one session is what I need.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can set that up.
I'm trying to problem solve and I'm looking it up, MDN and React, and I'm getting this weird syntax back, and I'm trying to put it together. And my son, he doesn't really do JSX, but he knows everything else. He was trying to help me late last night, and he even got kind of stymied because, so anyway, yeah, so I submitted some stuff I'd done, which is a mess, but so you can sort of see my thought process, but I obviously don't have it done and I don't know why it's so hard. It should be easy, I think.
Okay, well,
but that's enough. I'm done.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll go over, yeah, we can set up a one-on-one, just contact me after the class.
Yeah.
And then for now, let's see, we want to briefly go over props, state, and place to define components. Not sure what the other question was in regards to defining components.
I was asking just where does it go in the code? So I was told I was putting mine in the wrong place. So if you could just show where it needs to go.
Where the component goes?
Right, when you're defining it in a function.
Oh yeah, we'll touch on that real quick. Let me share this. I finally have something up, so we'll share the screen. and change my Zoom view so I can see everyone. All right. So everyone can see this code sandbox. Yes, thumbs up. Cool. All right. So first, before we get into props and state, let's talk about where to define components. We're going to be doing a lot of that today, but I'll briefly touch on it beforehand. So let's start. Let's talk about our folder and file structure to talk about where we can place components. So when we're looking at our project, we typically have a source folder where it's going to contain the source of all of our code for our project. Anything that's not in source is typically something like your package.json file, maybe like your git ignore file, things that are common to the project, but not necessarily code that you're going to compile and utilize in the browser later on. This is just things that configure your project. And then the public is where you'll keep your HTML that will be generated or auto-populated for you and presented to the user. So in source, there's a bunch of different ways you can structure out an application. What I have demonstrated here is your typical type of small application. So there's a source folder inside there. There's components. That's where you place all your component files. You can break it down further. So if, let's say, heading had 3 subcomponents, you can make it your own heading folder, and that'll contain all the heading related components. Also, there's like utils. That's pretty obvious, right? Those would be your helper files. If you have, we'll get into what a store is at some point. So if you have a store, there'll be a store file that's kind of like global state that encompasses your entire application. We can talk about that later. But when you're starting a component and where to place it is, that's a rename. We'll create a new file in our components folder. We'll just call it text.js. And where you define your component is right in this file, but not inside any other markup, right? So as an example, I saw this come up on one of the homeworks. So I'll export my component. We'll call it text, just like the name of the file. That'll take some props because we want to talk about props at some point. And we'll return some JSX markup. And do just so we have some sort of thing on the screen. All right. Now I'm going to import this into app where we have everything else. And you don't have to follow along with this part. This is just me getting this example up real quick. Cool. All right, so now I can comment that out, get our text up on the screen. We should see text component. Cool. So when we define our component, we do it at like the base level of the file. We're not inside any other functions. In fact, our component is a function, so we have to just define that outside of any other functions. Otherwise, it's not really a component that we can access easily from anywhere else. So here's where we have our component. I would not want to do something like this, where I say, const other component equals prop. This isn't going to work, right? JSX allows you to evaluate JavaScript, but it doesn't really allow you to define functions, export them out of the file or anything like that. You have to do that at the level of the file, not inside any other component. So that's where you place, like, so for example, if I had another component down here, right, I'll just say text wrapper because it wraps around the text or something like that. All right, I'll return div. All right, so I wouldn't define another component in here. I would define it outside of like this component. So all these components are defined separately. They're not inside of anything else. Does that help clarify that? Cool, perfect. As for props are, let's go back, let's keep app open. We'll do a double pane here. close that one. So props, think of props as data you want to pass down from a parent to a child. So right now, this function right here, oops, there we go. This function called app it's a component. It's the parent component in this relationship. So the parent, and because it's a parent, or the reason it is because literally this is inside the markup for it, right? It's nested within it. So just like in HTML, this div would be a parent to whatever comes after this or whatever's inside of it, right? So same thing with components. So this component's the parent, and you want to pass data from the parent down to the child component. That's the reason for props. So I'll define just some data right here. I'll just const some text equals something, right? And then to pass that down into my text component has to be able to expect that it's going to receive props. And props is literally just an object. It's all it is. So by default, this is what props looks like. Just some empty object. You define what the properties are on that object. So think of props as properties. They're properties of some object you're passing down to a child component. So if I had a text component, what could I call some of the props for that? I could call it text, I could call it message, I could call it, character string. It doesn't really matter, right? I define the name of that prop. So we'll just say text, we'll give it a prop of message. And then we'll pass in our variable here. All right, so this holds some text, just a string called something. And now that we're passing that prop in the component, now we have access to it on this props object that React automatically passes to every component. Right, so the first argument in your component function is always going to be props. So you can always expect that that's the case, right? So you can call it whatever you want here. The convention is props because that's what it is. So I would strongly advise keeping it that way, right? Don't call it like my props, simply because another developer working on your project in the future is going to be like, what's my props? I don't, like, is that props? Is it something else? Right, so keep it as props. And remember, props is an object, so we can access it with our dot syntax. Props can be repeated throughout it can be accessed repeatedly throughout the code, and I'll demonstrate that real quick. Right, so if I want to, let's say I had, well, let's first render this thing. So because we need to evaluate JavaScript, because props is an object, we can't render an object. So we have to evaluate it. So we use our curly braces. We say props dot, and then the name of the property we're passing in. In this case, it's message. And React's going to render that for us. Everyone's with me so far?
Carolyn said, so props can be repeated through the code.
Yes, so I can literally do this. And it'll render that same value of that prop in all places. So if I were to change this to something else, like something else, I'm accessing that property off of this props object. And I can place it anywhere I want in my component as many times as I want.
So
Makes
another
sense?
component, props, I mean, it looks like it's the same thing, but it's going to be different because in that component, so you could have props for each component. But
No,
you're
this
not
is
really
literally
repeating.
the same thing in all 5 places.
Right, but
It's a-
outside, at the higher level though, when you start with the props. That
Up
first
here?
line. Yeah, the, where you had, I can't quite see it, the const text equals props arrow.
Oh, that's just some, I can get rid of that. That's irrelevant, right? So that was just holding some data for me.
No, I'm talking the very top, the very first one, and then we did the props dot message after it. It's, you can say, you don't have to, with the next component, you don't have to do like props 2 in parentheses, right? Because that's just I'm trying to word it.
I think what you're saying is like every component can have props. Props is just generic. Each component gets its own props, own set of
Right, and the word props in the parentheses is not repeated because it's not, I mean, it's not, it is repeated, but not really because it's unique to each component.
correct. Yes.
Right, yeah, there's only one prop, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, my brain is going, woo.
No, it's okay. So let's see, so does this clear up the question on props? I see thumbs up, that's fantastic. And then state, so let's talk about state. So state is like props, except props you get from a parent down to a child. State exists within the same component, and that's where it lives, right? So it's not passed to you from someplace else. It lives inside the component. And so in order to do that, we pull in our use state function from React. I can get rid of, let me just save this, close that out. We don't need to see that. And then inside our function body for our component, before we return anything, we can define our state. I'm going to keep this empty for a second. We'll just say use state, and we'll just say text inside state, or inside component, because that's where it lives. So when we call this function called use state, we pass it a default value, and that's the first value that's going to be assigned to our state object, or our state reference, I should say. So use state gives us back an array, and it gives us back an array with two elements. The first element is the variable that's going to hold the value of state, whatever this piece of state is. It could be a number, a text. Obviously, we've got a string in here. It could be an object, another array. It doesn't matter. And then the second thing it passes to us is an updater function, or I think they also call it a setter function. It sets the value of this variable in state. Well, it sets the value of state that's accessed through this variable every time you call this thing. So you can change the value inside here so that it's not static, it can be dynamic. But we don't have to pass anything from a parent component down to this one in order to change it. We can do everything inside this component. So instead of saying props.message, I could just say text. And now it's accessing the value inside this piece of state represented by this variable here, right? And then if I wanted to change it, I could do that. I give this a function that's going to call my set text, call my updater function. I'll just put hi. Now when I click this, the value inside state changes, because that's what this function does. That's its sole purpose in life, is to update this piece of state. Does that make sense for state? Does that answer the questions that I see? Thumbs up. Fantastic. I'm loving it. All right, cool. So
Carolyn wants to know if you have to use a button to set text.
what's that? No, actually you don't. You can use anything that calls the function. So it could be, oh, let's do this. We'll say we have a div, right? It's got some gobbledygook in here. All I need to do, let me refresh this so we get our original piece of state. All I need to do is just call this function. That's all I need to do. It doesn't have to be a button. It could also be on mouse leave. So when my mouse enters this thing, it's now listening for a leave when it leaves this particular component. Oh my gosh. Can't type tonight. That's the problem. Type good. I need to type good. Okay, so when my mouse goes inside this component or inside this element and leaves, that triggers it, right? I'm just putting it inside some sort of event, right? Most of the time there'll be buttons, right? just by the nature of things like submit buttons or click here to show this thing or whatever, right? But it could be any event as long as that event fires this function. Make sense? CTAs, yes, exactly. Any sort of call to action. So if anyone not familiar with CTA, it's call to action, right? Exactly. Let's see. Okay, so any other questions on any of this before we go into what we're going to do today? Or are we at a good spot?
Hey, Joey, this is Shah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we create a component by using functions and classes. So these are the only two ways, and classes the old way, or?
Yeah, so it's either a class or a function. There's no other way to create a component.
Great.
Because at the end of the day, a component is a function. Whether you define it with a class or a function or not, it's a function, right? So React.create elements, or I'm sorry, yeah. React.create element, you pass it something that creates something on the screen. That's a function. It's just we can define it via a class or a function signature. And the difference between the two is historically, functions could only display things, right? They can't hold state. Classes could hold state because of their nature in JavaScript. They can hold values within themselves, within separate instances of those particular classes, right? So at some point, React said, well, let's just make it so that functions can do everything anyway, since at the end of the day, that's what we really want. We just want these functions. And they're far easier to write. They're more concise. They're easier to understand because classes get really weird. And it's kind of hard for people to understand, especially if they don't come from like an object-oriented type of background. Even so, they get kind of confusing. So React allowed functions to do all the same things that classes could, aside from one instance, which we'll get into at the end of the whole thing. But functions now can do it using these quote unquote hooks, right? So use state is the same thing as having your state defined in your class component. Use effect is the same thing as having lifecycle hooks or lifecycle methods inside your class component. So everything that mostly like 99.9% of everything you can do in React, you can do in functions now instead of classes. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay, cool. And then someone wanted to see use effect. Use effect, like I was just mentioning, is a way you can tap into the different events that happen while a component is being rendered to the screen. So when it first gets mounted to the DOM, we can listen for that event. When the component gets updated because maybe some new props came into it or state was updated, every time you update state, you notice it changed automatically on the screen. That's because it re-rendered the entire component because something changed. So we can listen for that event. We can even tell when the component's about to be destroyed, quote unquote, destroyed and removed from the DOM. Right before that happens, we can do something with that as well. And we can do all that with this one function called use effect. Because what the use effect does is whenever the component mounts, whenever it updates, whenever it's about to be removed, this will be called, right? We can tell it, hey, do this thing right before this event or right during this event. So if I say use effect takes a callback as its first argument. We could just say console.log hi. Okay, so we can check to see when this fires by looking at our console. Let me refresh this. So we can see it says hi, it rendered once. That was component did mount, right? Our component has mounted to the DOM. This use effect will fire. Every time this component updates, it's going to do something. So if I go mouse in and out, you can see our second hi was console logged because our component was re-rendered. I can keep doing this. Well, nothing's really going to change now because I already changed state. So, so at this point, the only thing that use effect would work with now is if the component left the DOM, right? So we're not gonna worry about that one at this point in time, but we can talk more about that as we get towards the end. But for now, let's say we only wanted this to be executed when the component mounts to the DOM and no other time, right? So I could say, I can give a second argument to my callback. Let me put this all in one line to make it really obvious. So here's this is our first argument passed to use effect is a function. The second argument that it is accepted is a list, or what's called a dependency list. And what we're going to do is this use effect, aside from mounting to the DOM, will only ever fire if whatever we put in this list changes. So we can make a reference to something. We can say, okay, let's say props dot, I don't know, text. Right? If props dot text, let's get this all on the same screen. If props dot text changes, fire this use effect. If it doesn't change, don't do it. Right? We're only going to fire this thing once when it mounts, and once for every time one of these things changes. Well, if we don't put anything in the list, it'll only ever fire once because there's nothing in the list to listen to. So that's it, done. It's never going to fire again. Does that help? Cool, awesome. All right, so any other questions, or should we jump into what we're going to do today? All right, so let's get cracking. All right.
Was that
So-
a pun, get cracking?
Yes. someone caught it. All right. Let's see. So what I want to do now is talk about what we're going to be working on, and that's going to be that class project, the class project working folder. Remember the thing I had you guys set up and get the test data rendering. So everyone should have the latest I haven't updated the repository since before class started. So everyone, I believe, has pulled that down and got their class project working folder. That project was up and going, right? Everyone got that started. Not that you started it right now, but everyone got that successfully, right? I see thumbs up, I see nodding heads. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna bring over my screen's still sharing, so we're good. Let's close down in case we need it again. And everyone should be able to see my VS Code, right? In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this like half the screen, or somewhat half the screen, because I want to show the browser at the same time. All right, so if we open up VS Code and go to Cohort 2, Module 6, Class Project Working. Right, so we want to get into this folder right here. Does everyone need a minute, or is everyone in this 1 minute? Okay. Yep, so let's all just get to this folder right here. Now, when you have the solution open and you're on that folder, you right-click the class project working folder, click Open in Integrated Terminal inside the menu for that. And just to verify you're in the right spot in the terminal, type pwd, and you should see class project working in the the print working directory, right? So we should see class project working right here. So if you're at that point, give me a thumbs up when you get there. That way I can see where we're all at. Cool, seeing thumbs up. Excellent. And then Caitlin, do you have the latest repo version of the repo pulled down? Were you
Yep.
able to do any of that? Okay. So, so you'll be following along.
Yes, I will be.
Okay. Oh, there's one thing that you won't have that the others have,
Ooh,
and that's but that's okay. We'll correct it once your solution is running. All right, so we're all there? Excellent. All right, so everyone to type npm start and let your solution start up. Let your new web browser tab open up, and we should see home page with a button that says click to test API connection. Mine's opening in a separate window. So this is what we should see after a minute. Oh, I gotta plug my laptop in. Otherwise you won't see anything. It's not for me. All right. So npm start, npm space start. That will start our development server for our application, for our project. All right, everyone seeing the blue button? All right, so we're gonna pick on Caitlin real quick. So this is what we should see when we click our button. And she's probably gonna be like, nope, I don't see that.
Excuse me, Joey, this might seem like an elementary question. You have the integrated terminal and obviously the menu down the left.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like inspect inside Visual Studio Code?
No, all we had to do was right click our class project working folder, open an
Right.
integrated terminal, and then type
Right.
npm start in the terminal.
Right, but you've got the web, the rendering of the
Oh,
web.
I'm just, yeah, I just have the browser on the same screen so I can share it. But if you have it, tucked away
Oh,
behind your
okay.
VS Code, I just want to make sure that you can see
Yeah.
both things.
I didn't think there was a way to do that in VS Code, and I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to know.
Oh, no,
Okay.
nope. This is literally
Oh, good.
a
I'm
separate
not missing
application.
as many parts
Yep.
as I thought. Okay, thank you.
This is VS Code and this is a browser. No magic. All right, so the assignment that we gave everyone was to get this started and to get some test data rendering, right? So, of course, when you first started up, it didn't do that, right? So we had to figure out why that was happening. So inside of we go into the source folder for our application. We'll see the index.js file, which is the start of all of our projects, all of our project code, or what's going to be rendered on the screen. And then line 7, we had to uncomment that line out in order for us to be able to use our mock API. So this is going to be our pretend backend, our pretend API endpoint system. That's going to give us all the data we need to develop this application. So if you uncomment that, save the file, refresh your browser, and click to test API connection, you should see some green text with some example data. Right? Everyone got to that point, right? Everyone's good so far with all that?
No.
I just meant like in general with the project. Like you guys were able to get that completed, right? It's part of that one homework. Okay, I see a lot of.
Hello, Joey.
Yeah.
This is Latonia. I did it the first time around and it worked, but now it's back to showing the 404, even though the that's uncommented.
Okay, which
Right.
folder did you start npm? Did you do npm start in? Did you do it inside the right folder?
Yep, it was the working project.
Working, okay. So,
Did you click the button, Latonya?
What button? The blue one?
yeah,
Yep. That's how I got the 404.
Oh,
I can just follow along. I just, because I don't want to hold us up. I just.
right. For what we're gonna do today, we don't really need the API endpoint to do anything for us. We're just gonna kind of set up like how the application is kind of structured, just as like an introduction to this thing. So we don't really need it to show us data just yet, but we will definitely want to fix that before class finishes by tomorrow. So.
Hi, Joey.
Yep.
This is Shah. So I also, when I did for the assignment at work, but now we had to uncomment that again. So we don't have we cannot commit these changes. So that's why after the class, when we close this one and discard changes on GitHub, so if I open this tomorrow or later, I'll be back where I am now. So,
Right, so
the assignment, I did it in my own folder. So what do you want us to do with this?
oh, if
Because
you're
we won't be
doing it,
committing changes.
so you're gonna want to work out of the folder where you were making those changes.
Oh,
Okay, not the original one, the class one?
You could technically, yes, but if you already copied this solution over to another folder to work on it, you're gonna want to work out of the one that you copied.
oh man.
Okay,
So if we
okay,
forward
thanks.
this, we don't want to do coding in the spot you're in. We want to do it on our own spot, but we can watch in this spot.
Well, you want to follow along for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I'm going to do at the end of, after class is done tonight, I'm going to upload all of the changes I made to the repo so that tomorrow you can pull down all the changes and we'll all be at the same spot. We'll all be at the same starting points. No one will be left behind, but then you're going to want to make sure you copy those pulled down changes to your working directory, wherever you're working with it.
So in Code Sandbox, we fork it and then it goes to our repository on Code Sandbox. But in this context, it's different.
Right. In this context, you clone the repo.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not going to be pushing these changes up to the repo, to Careers in Code. That's going to be my responsibility. So you just have to clone it,
Okay.
clone it down, and then just
Yeah.
it locally.
Take from it. So in our CIC my code or whatever we call our folder is where this stuff's going to go. And the stuff we're working on for the exercises and the homeworks in Code Sandbox is repoed in Code Sandbox in our account that we have by forking it.
Right. So Code Sandbox, you fork it to work on it.
Right.
Now-
And it's the class project is going to be in VS Code. Everything else is going to be
In the
in-
class project, you're going to do a git pull, right, to
Right.
get the latest. And then
Yeah,
tomorrow you'll have, before class starts, I'll have the latest code from tonight
Right.
uploaded.
but that'll be in the VS Code that we'll be doing
Correct.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I got the two. I'm like, what? Where are we? Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. So you're looking at, okay, I see. Yep. Cool. Awesome. All right, cool. So what we're going to do is, now that we have all this open, we can see that our project is running. That's cool. We're going to take a quick look inside our code. Let me close this, just minimize this. It's not taking up too much room. So your index.js file is the start of your whole application, right? That's where we have our React DOM.render. That's telling all this stuff to render inside a div somewhere called with an ID of root. And so if we were to look at the public folder inside index.html, at some point in this file, we'll see, yep, there's a div with an ID of root. That is where our React application will be rendered inside this div. And so now we could say, okay, well, let's see what we're rendering right now. Right now, we're rendering something called app. And if we look up here, we can see we're importing it from the same directory in a file called app. So let's go there. And so now in this component, it's just a component called app. And this was used, I made this with the, well, this is the the default function that it came with when you start up a new Create React app. It creates a function component with the keyword function. But it's, again, we'll be using arrow functions for everything else. So this renders a div with a class name of app. And inside here, we're rendering a component called homepage. And if we look up here, we can see this is being imported from our components folder, the homepage folder, and then the homepage file itself. So if we follow that, we go over to components, we see homepage and homepage.js. This is the homepage component. This is everything we're seeing on the screen right now. So let's just take a quick look at what's going on in here, just to give an idea. Now, we don't need to be, this is all just Bootstrap CSS classes that have been applied to the whole project. So we'll be working with Bootstrap and its grid system and things like that. We don't have to worry about importing that stuff. That's already done for us. If you remember back on, I think I had mentioned it on Friday, or not Friday, I'm sorry, Thursday. We're going to treat this as you were just hired on to a company. They already have an application. It's not quite done yet. And your job is to go into this project and finish it, basically, right? You weren't required to set it up. You weren't required to create the Webpack stuff and the build utilities. The basic outline of the application is running right now. We've got a server going. There's already an API endpoint. We just have to fill this thing out. And in a second, I'll bring up the completed one just so we can take a look at what this thing will eventually look like. So we have a reference to that. In fact, before we jump into it, let's just do that now since it's on my mind. So I already have this thing running in another server instance. This just says complete, so I know which one I'm looking at. And this is going to have a bunch of links. We're going to have a nav bar up top. So we can click home, which takes us to this page. We can click shop, which takes us to a list of things that looks like we can start shopping on. Again, this is R&R is like we can purchase vacation packages. Each one of these packages is a per person like ticket. Think of it like you're purchasing a ticket. So if you were to go on a waterfall retreat with 3 of your buddies, you would purchase 4 of these. Each one is this price right here. And inside of here, if you click on any one of these, we can see more details about that package. We can add it to the cart. We can look at different pictures related to some of the sites you may see while on that particular vacation. We also have a wiki, which tells us all about the API endpoints that we'll eventually be working with. We don't have to touch the API code at all. All the data we need is already there for us. We just have to tap into it, and this will tell us how we are able to do that. The other thing we have, search, just takes us back to the shop page, just as a quick little shortcut. And then this cart icon will take us to the cart where if I go back to shop, let's say I add one of these, or maybe me and someone else will go on a trip. Go back here, I can see I have quantity of 2. It totals the price. I have a subtotal for everything I've ordered, right? And then when I click checkout, at this point, the application will be handled by, let's say, another developer. They'll finish the checkout portion. It's our job to get it to this point. That's your task for this portion of your employment. We're good? We're good with what we need to accomplish? All right. Is anyone excited to see how we're going to put this together? Does this look like it's fun? This sort of layout is pretty common. In fact, Caitlin's going to laugh when she sees some of the code that we go over. It'll look very familiar to her, especially especially the wiki should look really, really familiar.
Yeah.
All right, so cool. So let's first look at our application so far. Again, all we have right now is we have a home page. We got some markup in here. So we've got a bunch of classes that are defined. Now the difference, and I'll get into this today, the difference between these classes and this one is that these are all Bootstrap classes that we can take advantage of. Bootstrap already has all these classes defined for us, make it easier. The classes we see like homepage and homepage with a double underscore heading, this is a different type of, well, this is not a different type of class, but it's a different location for those classes. Those are classes that we are going to define, right? And they'll also tell us a little bit about where it exists. If we're looking at the home, well, let me do this. This will make it a lot clearer. It's easier to explain. So if I were to go into my dev tools and I were to inspect this page, so I go to elements, I'll look at everything that's rendered to the screen. We'll close the console. Right, so I can highlight these things. I could see it shown on my screen. If I were to go in here and select this element, this tells me, okay, I see a class, homepage underscore heading. Clearly that's the heading, right? So the way this class is named tells us where it exists in our code base, which is really, really helpful. This sort of naming convention is called BEM, B-E-M, and I will provide a link. So if you go to getbem.com, this outlines a specific naming convention. You don't have to use this. When I was first introduced to this about a couple of years ago, I was like, that's kind of cool, I guess. But then once I really started using it more and more, it really stuck with me. And I kind of laughed because I was like, nah, it's too verbose. I don't want to type all that stuff out. But the person who had showed me it said, I promise you, in a year, you're not going to want to do anything else. And he was absolutely right. It's a fantastic way to not only give proper, like, quote unquote, proper names to your components and your elements, but it's also a way to foster code discoverability. So if you're not familiar with this project, which at this point you're not, right? Like you're just being introduced to this for the first time. Oh, I'll keep this open. We can read up more on this later. As I go along, as we talk about it, I'll kind of introduce snippets of what BEM can do for us. But essentially, it's a naming convention for CSS, or for anything really. It doesn't have to be just CSS. But as we look at this, I say, okay, well, I've never used this. I've never been in this code base before, but I have a pretty good idea that this is probably the homepage component. And if I look at this and say, okay, I'm still inside the home page component, but now I'm inside the heading. Okay, cool. What if I needed to find this thing in the code? I could literally copy this. I could do a search for it. Oops, that's the actual class. And I can see all the places where this exists. I could say, oh, well, it's in homepage.js. Well, there it is. Now we can start working on it, right? So if there was a problem with, hey, it seems like our heading isn't rendering right. You say, oh, okay, let me take a look. Let me go here. Oh, I see it's at this class. I'll do a search on it. I come in here and maybe this was like empty, right? Like, oh, there's our problem, right? It's a really quick way to figure out where your code lives without even looking at the code yet, right? You could say you clearly were in the homepage component, clearly we're in the heading, right? So having this naming convention is really, really helpful. And just to kind of explain more about BEM, what those initials stand for, B stands for block, E stands for element, and M stands for modifier. So the homepage is our block. That's our kind of wrapper. That's our component. The E is the heading. Heading is our E. That's our element within the block. And then if there were any modifiers, it would look like this. Say hidden, right? So the first thing is your B. That's your block. Double underscore. We separate it with double underscore. And then we have our element. So we're inside the heading. And then dash dash, and then any modifier, right? So by default, this is not hidden. But if something in my code tells something in my code tells this element to update to become hidden, then the modifier would be applied to it, and that's how it would look. It would be appended to the end of the class name with some dashes, and then the name of whatever it's supposed to do And I would be, it's okay to be a little verbose with some of these things. So I could say, let's say this was the fifth heading on the page. I could say heading fifth, right? Or fifth with full text. That's okay to be a little verbose with this. It feels like it's a lot of typing, and sometimes it is. And at first that kind of threw me off. But at the end of the day, it is so easy to find where that code lives just by looking in your DOM. You already know where it is. You already know where to look, right? I already know that this is the homepage JS file. I already know it just because that's how it's named. Remember how components are named the same as their file? Well, in here, we're naming the class the same name as the component file and the actual component. Everything is very discoverable. And so this is a practice that I would highly encourage. It doesn't have to be this exactly, right? Maybe a company that you start working for doesn't use them, but maybe use something similar that feels similar to this, right? But I would highly encourage to be very, very descriptive, right? So Bootstrap is kind of like, it's descriptive if you know like their nomenclature. Like I know this is a column. I know it's a medium column. And I know it's like 8 units wide out of 12. If you don't know Bootstrap, this would be very confusing, right? However, if you don't know this app, this is less confusing, right? I already know where to look. And I haven't even touched your CSS yet. And I can already tell what I need to touch, right? So I would highly encourage using a convention like this. It's just going to make your life easier and any future developers on your team, their lives easier as well. Any questions on this before we go further? Or did I dive into that too much, or was that just about right? We're going to be going over a lot of different topics as we build this thing out. Again, this isn't a deliverable. You aren't expected to return this project. This is mostly for instruction purposes only. But feel free if you want to use any of this stuff as boilerplate for your projects as well, or as like a template to look at. Say, oh, well, I like how we did the nav bar, so maybe I'll do something like that, right? You'll have access to this whenever you want. All right, cool. So let's get further into our code to see what we are doing. Oh, and really quick, in case anyone hasn't discovered this yet, it was a revelation for me when I first was taught this. But do you know how to get to any file you want really quick without opening the folder tree? Has anyone showed you that yet? So if you're inside the editor and you hit Command P and just start typing the name of the file, you can go right to it. You can see here, I have 3 of them. I have one inside working, complete, and start. Click on the one I want, boom, there I am. So if you know the name of the file, or if you kind of know the name of the file, right? So let's say, I think there's some sort of media file thing. Oh, image media, that's what it was. That's what I wanted, right? You can go right to that file. So super helpful. It really helps when you're working on a project. You're not quite sure. You kind of know what the name is, or maybe you know exactly what the name is, but you don't remember what folder it's in. Command P and start typing the name of the file. And boom, there you go. And actually, you can actually go right into your dev tools in your browser. And if it's source maps, if what's called source maps is enabled for the project, which I don't think I have it enabled by default, you can do Command P in here. Oh, look at that. I can debug this right in my browser. Here's my JavaScript. Right, so you can do the same thing in the browser with Command P under the Sources tab. And you can set breakpoints, so you can do all kinds of different things. Did you guys go over debugging in the browser at all? Or is that, we haven't got to that point in the Careers in Code yet?
I don't think they did debugging.
Okay.
I'm mistaken.
If there's any questions on this, Max. Oh, so Max talked about it a little bit. Okay. As we get towards the end.
No, that was in reference to the Command P shortcut.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
And
Yeah.
I have a question when you're done with your thought.
Yeah, so as we get into this project, Maybe I'll make use of this a little bit more. Maybe we'll try to debug some things. So get you used to using these tools because they're going to be super helpful. Like I'd say 90% of the debugging I do right in the browser. I don't even touch the code until I know where I'm at in the browser. And there's a lot of different tools in here that are really, really helpful. I can see any network requests I make. I can see the data coming back before I even touch the code. Like I don't have to console log out anything for the most part. I still do sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, what was your question?
For the home page, we've got the blue button,
Yep.
and then we had the black button with null, and then if you clicked on it, you got the 404, and that's using the code in the code base. But I'm not getting the black box that actually has the code in it. Should I be?
What are you getting?
It's just, well, I didn't click on it again to fire it up, but I've got the blue button, click to
Yep.
the test, and then the null in red in the black
Oh,
button.
that's fine.
And then if I click, okay, it tells me to, I get the 404, but I really wanted to see the code. All right.
Oh, you just need to make sure that inside your index.js file,
Yeah.
the one inside your class project working folder,
Uh-huh.
make sure that line 7 is not commented out.
Okay, let's close that.
So, incidentally, you could say Command P index.js.
Right.
Module 6 class project and work. Yeah, right there. Boom.
So source, I'm just going to go through it the old way.
Okay. Yeah. So make sure that is not commented out.
Index.js line 7
Line
is
7.
commented out because we were supposed to do that for our assignment, right?
Well, we wanted to uncomment it.
So now that's what we were doing. Oh God, I don't speak
All right.
English.
So uncomment that, save the file, and then refresh your browser, and then you should be able to click the button and see the test data.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Welcome. All right,
Too
cool.
easy.
Right,
Sorry
so
to be such a pain.
So now, one last thought on the BEM naming convention with CSS, just because we're going to do something a little bit different. Have you guys only done CSS files, or have you done any like preprocessors like Sass or less? Does that sound familiar?
We touched base on SAS a little bit, but not that much.
Okay, so we're going to use Sass in this project just to get you more exposure. You can totally, any CSS is valid in Sass. So it's not like you're doing something different. You just have more functionality available to you in addition to regular CSS. And we'll get into that. But if you look at this, if I look at this homepage, I can see class name is homepage. The class name for the heading is homepage heading. That's how this looks here. We've got homepage underscore heading, right? There's a homepage underscore button. So that's how you would set up your classes, right? Now we can simplify this with Sass, and we'll show you that as we go along, so you don't have to write as much. I think you'll like it. I think it'll feel like a viable solution. All right, so enough with that for now. Let's get back to our code. So here we have a Bootstrap row. We've got columns. We've got, so for this one, by default, it's 10 columns wide, but on a medium-sized screen, it's 8. It's offset by 1 column. So that's so we have our, like this right here on the left-hand side is our offset. That just gives us our padding. And then offset medium 2. So if we're on a medium-sized screen, we're offset by 2. See how it grew a lot? That's 2 columns worth of width. So this is also going to be kind of a Bootstrap refresher. The other thing I'm going to kind of give you a heads up on, after tomorrow, we're not going to be writing a lot of CSS. And the reason for that is because once we get through today and tomorrow, we could write all of these CSS that we want, but it's going to eat into our time. So if after tomorrow, if there's any questions or if anyone feels like they need more practice with CSS, we can write more of it. But after, so starting on Wednesday, I will be providing the completed CSS for each component we'll be creating, unless anyone has any objections. Like, because writing CSS, I'll be honest, it's tedious. It takes a long time, right? And then if you don't get it right, you got to tweak it, refresh, and do all these different things, right? Maybe you don't like the color, so you want to change it. You can spend hours tweaking CSS, right? But over the next couple of days, we'll definitely be writing CSS. I'll show you how to write SAS files. And after that, as long as we're all comfortable with it, I'll provide in the repos at the start of the day, the finished CSS for the components we'll be creating for that day. Does that sound okay? Simply because I want you guys to have enough practice to, to remember how to do the CSS. But also, I want to give us enough time to actually finish the majority or hopefully all of this application. And so writing CSS, I'll be honest with you, that took most of the time when I created this application, was writing all the CSS to make it look the way it does. It's time intensive, it really is. I'll be completely honest with you there. It's not my favorite thing to do in the world. I do enjoy CSS. I like making things look nice, but at the same time, it's a time suck. It really does. It takes up a lot of time. So, and if at any point in the future, we're like, hey, can we go back to writing a couple CSS files? We totally can. Okay, we'll see how we all feel on Wednesday. But this will allow us to move forward a lot quicker with just the React portion. All we have to do is know what classes to put in, and we'll be good to go. All right? Okay, cool. So here we have a button. This is our big blue button here. We know this because if I look at the test button class, this, now in Bootstrap, primary buttons are blue. The primary context color is blue. If I make this success, right, the context color for success is green. Now change to green, right? And also while your development server is running, any changes you make to your files, they'll automatically show up over here. There's a couple instances where we'll have to restart our server. Like if we were to, sometimes when we create new files, it doesn't register them right away, especially if you're creating new folders to put those files in. Sometimes we may have to restart our server, and I'll show you how to do all that. But for the most part, all the changes we see, or all the changes we make, will be automatically reloaded in our browser for us. We just have to make sure we're on the same page that we're making the changes in the component for. Cool. Also, let me put that back. All right, and then next, inside this button, when we click it, we make a call with the Axios library to an endpoint API cart. We get a response. We do something with that response. If there's an error, we show an error. If it's successful, we're setting some sort of success trigger, right? We're setting the API data. Does this look familiar? Set something. What's that? State, right? If I look up here, oh, look at that.
I always think of it as an event handler. I got to stop thinking about it that way.
That technically is not the event handler. The on-click is the event handler.
Right,
So
which changes the state.
Right, so this function is given to us from useState. So here we see it in action right away. Right, so you're going to get used to seeing useState quite a bit, and it's going to be a good way to reiterate and make sure you're get the muscle memory in for typing this stuff in. Let's see, so more divs. This holds our data, right? So here's the JSON.stringify, and that's just showing us our data. So that's all we have for this application right now. What we want to do is look at our time. We'll take a break in about 15 minutes. But when we get back from break, what we'll be doing is we'll be creating the basic layout of this application, so which is the header, or where the header will live if we don't have enough time to finish the whole thing, where the current page will be displayed, and then where a footer will be displayed. So we have a header, our page body, and a footer. So at the end of the day, we should have 3 different sections of something to render. It may not be pretty yet, but at least we'll have the basic structure, and I'll show you how to navigate between the different pages. So at the end of the day, we should have just some basic placeholders to show what the pages would be. Like maybe they'll just say home page or shop page or cart page. But I'll show you how to render those pages through the nav bar. And that's our goal for the end of today. Before we get into that, let's take one quick look at our folder structure again. So we already know it's in index.js. That's where our app is, or that's where our app is rendered. And in here, the only thing we're rendering inside the app is our homepage. So we definitely need to render something different because we have to have a header, the page body, which in this case would be homepage, and then the footer. So the first thing we'll do before break is create some new folders to place all these things in. We're going to be very logical about it. And I'm going to open up my notes over here.
So will we be doing any get element by ID and pulling into the HTML?
That's already done for us. That's the index.js file. Oh, where's my cursor?
Okay, so I'll look at that code and I'll see, but that is something we would do. It's just we don't need to because when we got hired, someone had already done it.
Right. And
Okay.
in reality, for this application, we only needed to do it once and that was it.
Okay, but I'm on the right track thinking that
Yes.
would be right. Oh, good.
Yep, you got it. Oh, someone's using Sass for their capstone. Very cool. So you're going to get practice with that. All right, cool. Let's see. All right, so let's create some folders. So we're going to follow along here. And we need these are going to be components. We're not going to necessarily have like a separate folder for pages because each page, it's going to be its own component. You could structure it that way, but for the sake of simplicity, all of our components are actual React components, whether they're a page or some subcomponent, are going to live in the components folder. And each, let's say the product page will definitely have a bunch of different components for it, and we'll structure those in there. But for now, we just need a few different things. First of all, we're going to right-click on the component folder, create a new folder, and we're going to we need a header. So we'll create a folder called header. We'll create another folder in here called footer. And another folder called layout. Now your layout, in a typical application, your layout dictates where things should be rendered. So in our case, it's going to dictate where the header should be rendered, where the body of the page should be rendered, and where the footer should be rendered, and if there's any sidebars or anything like that. Your layout tells you exactly, literally that, the layout of your page structure, okay? And you'll see that as a pattern across many different frameworks, not just React type frameworks. And in fact, some frameworks literally call it layout.html. We're calling it layout because we're sticking with a convention, not because we have to. All right, so.
All right, were you making those files or folders?
Folders.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Just double checking because mine doesn't, I did folders as well.
Okay, yep, so inside your components folder, you should have a footer, header, homepage, and layout folder. In fact, I think I made this a file. Hold on. I wanted a folder. New folder layout. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, that's what I was talking about. I was like, wait, mine doesn't.
Oh, sorry, my bad. That's me like being too fast. Cool. All right, so we have all these things. What time are we at? So we have a few minutes. So inside our, just open up my notes here. Yeah, so inside, we'll just go one by one. So inside our footer folder, we'll create a new file. You could probably guess what it's going to be called, footer.js. I'll close that so I don't accidentally click in there. Inside my header folder, I'll create a new file called header.js. And do the same thing for layout. We'll have a layout.js file in the layout folder. And homepage is already there for us, so we don't have to touch it. But here's what we should see. Footer with footer.js, header with header.js, and layout with layout.js. Give me a thumbs up when you guys have completed that. All right. So the other thing we're going to work on is, let's see, or maybe maybe this is a good spot for a break. Yeah, so why don't we take our break now? Simply because I need to get some water, ran out. And then we'll come back and we'll start working on writing some components inside these. We'll get them rendered to the screen, okay? So let's say, what is it now? 7:10. So what do you think, 7:25? Is that good for everyone? All right, so we'll see everyone back at 7:25 and we'll start writing some components. And I'll leave this up on the screen in case anyone needs it. All right, we're not back yet. There's still 4 minutes, but I see there was a question. What's the question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just wanted to verify. So like I was recapping through the videos. I did the exact thing you said not to do, and I had to restart my computer. Like it said it was already running for my live.
Oh, I see.
Is that what I'm gonna have to close out everything and restart everything, right? When that happens. Like I had installed it and then came back to it in class today and couldn't update it.
Oh, so you had closed everything out without killing the server?
I hadn't even closed it out. I just apparently, I don't know if I lost Wi-Fi or what, but I went back
Oh.
into it and yeah, I had gotten that error message. So when that does happen, because I know I'll do it again, I just log or I have to shut everything down for that, right?
Well, you could start up another process technically. I wouldn't advise doing it all the time, but I could show you real quick. Is my screen still sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go into, to make sure that your server is definitely not running right now, right? You're getting the error. Like you don't see this, you see just a command prompt.
I have, hold on. I think I only have that bottom part that says the npm run builds. But we put stuff in there. So like right now, no, mine has the local host 3000. And then,
So now you just need, yeah, so you just, at that point, you just need to go to localhost 3000 in your browser. Copy
okay.
it. Yeah, just copy and paste this into your URL address bar.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I have it now. I just, yeah, I did it while we were in the middle and I obviously got back on really quick, but I was like, crap, you said specifically to not do that. And I did it.
Oh, so I'll touch on a little bit of what I think you were seeing. So you closed your browser, right? Without shutting it
Yes.
down. So technically that's okay because it's still running. It's
Yep,
just,
I just got in the terminal, I got an error that said it's already being run or it's already being used somewhere else.
right. So when this is running, you can close the browser, that's fine. That doesn't kill the server. That just closes the browser. So you just have to open up a new browser and go to localhost 3000.
Okay.
What I was referring to was if you were to close out VS Code, there's really no guarantee that this process will stop. And so the next time you start up a new instance of VS Code and try to go and start the project up, you might see an error. But if
Okay.
all you did was close the browser, all you got to do is open up a new browser and go to localhost 3000 and you should be good to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so it started in like 30 seconds. Okay, everyone good? All right, so what we're gonna do is, well, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna not render the home page anymore, because that's going to be in our layout. We're gonna designate where we want page content to be displayed, and home page is definitely some sort of page content. So we're gonna go into app.js. and we're just going to delete this line. So we should have an empty, blank, white browser screen.
Wait, what line did you delete? The homepage line?
Because we're going to display it elsewhere. We're not going to display it in app. Our layout is going to tell us where that should be displayed. So let me show the other completed application real quick. So as we're navigating around, our layout determines where this content should live. So that's going to be, we're going to tell it how to render that later. But instead of just rendering the homepage all the time, we want to render a layout that will dictate where the different parts of the application will be displayed. So now that we've done that, we see a blank screen. We're going, oh no.
Hold on, Joy. You did that in the components file?
In the app.js file.
Yeah, but app.js folder
It's
or
in
the
the source
component
folder.
folder?
In the SRC folder.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was getting ready to delete the wrong one. Thank you.
Yeah, don't delete the file. Just the line of code. Just the homepage reference here on line 6. That's what we want to delete. And you'll notice this import statement is now grayed out because it's not being referenced anywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now we're going to go into layout, our layout.js file. So source, components, layout, layout.js. We're going to export, const, layout. Again, we're just creating components here. We'll put props in here. I don't know if we'll end up using props with this one, but just as a convention, it's there, just to get used to seeing it. Then we're going to return some markup. We'll return a div. And we'll give this div a class name. Now, this is the quote unquote block of them where we're defining the class names on this thing. So what do we call, what class name do we give this? Layout, right? Because this is our layout component. So when we're looking inside the DOM at our HTML structure, we know exactly where this lives. It lives in the layout file inside the layout component. All right, so inside our div, well, we don't really have anything yet. So let's just render something. Let's just render the text layout. Let's just make sure that we can get this thing rendered to the screen properly. Or you can put whatever you want there, any sort of text. And back in app.js, now we're going to import that component. So import, now it's a named export because we used export const. So import curly braces layout from /components/layout/layout.js, or you don't have to put JS. So we're importing it from the components folder, which is at the same level of app.js, and the components folder at the same folder structure level. So /components. Inside the layout folder, we have a layout component file. I keep doing that. Now between the div, we're just going to say layout, and we're going to self-close that tag. And we're going to save that. And then if you come over to your browser, and after you saved it, we should see the text layout or whatever text you placed in there. Give me a thumbs up when you're at that point. Cool, seeing lots of thumbs ups. Okay, so now, well, our layout's going to dictate where things live. So if we go back, we can now close out app.js. We're done with app.js right now. In fact, if I look at my notes, we don't touch app.js ever again for the entire project. That's all we had to do was tell app what to render, as the application. And that's going to be our layout. Our layout is going to determine the placement of everything else. So the sole purpose of app was to render the layout for the application, right? And you'll see this type of pattern in applications as well, where you have like a kind of like your root application, and inside there you have maybe one or two different things. And those things are responsible for handling all the logic, what to display, where to display it, things like that. So we're going to close out app.js.
Joey, can you show us the code for layout.js really quick?
Yep, it's on the screen right now.
Oh, sorry. It must have popped up when you closed app.js. Yeah.
I closed it just as you said, hey, where's layout? There it is. One step ahead of you. All right. So
Kyle asked if you should delete the import for the homepage. Yeah, because you're not using it.
yeah, you can totally delete that. In fact, if you look inside the completed app, it's commented out, but it's only commented out for the reason that I wanted to have a starting point for working and start, and I wasn't sure which one I wanted at first. So you can ignore that. But if you're not importing something, just delete it out. It's just filler, right? Okay, so here's layout. Now we want to tell it where we should render our heading, or our header, our page content, and our footer. So let's just put some placeholders in here for now. So I'm going to make sure you wrap your div with parentheses. So it's multi-line. In fact, I'm just going to put them on separate lines. And we're just going to put some placeholders here. We're just going to say div, header, put a div for like, page body, and a div for the footer. Spell footer right. And then if you look at, we should see header, page body, and footer in the browser. Okay. And then, well, this isn't enough really. So let's work on one thing at a time. We're going to work on the header first, because that's going to contain our navigation to how we navigate through all the different pages. That's going to be our nav bar. So we'll start there. So if we go over to header.js, which is inside your header folder, again, we're going to create a new component. So export.
I'm sorry, Joey, I was still trying to type up that code in layout.
In layout?
Yeah, this is going a little too fast for typing. Could you split screen maybe, and I could,
Oh yeah, let's do that.
that way you can keep going and I can figure out what, yeah.
I have a question. I'm not sure where I messed up, and I'm thinking that it's somewhere within my files. It says failed to compile, module not found, can't resolve components, layouts, in users. And then it says like all of my information and everything. But I'm pretty sure that my layout folder is inside of my components folder.
Uh-huh.
Then I have a layout.js file within the layout folder.
Okay.
Correct?
Header, page body,
So
footer.
that would be good. And then your import statement.
It says import curly brackets layout from,
file.
I'm sorry.
It should be in your app.js file, right? So you've got import.
Yeah, that's in my app.js file.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where I messed up.
That's interesting. You want to share your screen real quick?
Yeah, I can.
If you're comfortable with that. Maybe quicker to see that.
Can you see my screen now?
No, I think, do I need to stop sharing first? I think I need to stop sharing.
I don't know. It says I'm screen sharing on my end.
Oh, now I see it.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got failed to compile, source app, module file, components. Oh, okay. So on line 2, inside your app.js file, what you've done is you're saying, hey, import from components component/layout.js, but that's not where it lives, right? It lives in components/layout/layout.js
Oh,
because we've nested it in a folder called layout.
got it. Okay.
And just to kind of reiterate for everyone, you don't need to put .js at the end of it if you don't
Right.
want to. But if it helps with like, figuring out where things are, then that's totally cool.
Okay. Wait, but then refresh this. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yeah, so if people come across that sort of stuff, let me know right away so that we can make sure that, because it's good for everyone to, see all the different bugs and errors that we can get and what they all mean. And I need to share my screen again. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, so everyone see my.
Yes, I just have one quick question before we move on from the placeholder divs that we just put in layout. So React doesn't like the semantic kind of tags, like it wouldn't like it if you had the footer tag where you have footer. It should really always be divs.
Oh no, you could definitely do footer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
Yeah. You can totally do that. I'm just doing this out of simplicity. In fact, for like accessibility and stuff like that, you probably want to use the correct tags for certain areas. But yeah, in this project, I used a lot of divs for everything because it's easier for me to kind of structure it out in my head. Okay, so inside, where were we? That's SF.js. So inside header, we want to create, inside our header.js file, we want to export a new component, function component called header. Let's see. I don't know if we'll use props in this, but that's okay. We're just going to return some markup.
Excuse me, Joey.
Yep.
If nobody else needs a layout screen, I'm all set if you want to give yourself some more space there. I got it. I don't know if everyone has it, but I'm
Going good.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, so our header component, again, we just want to render something. I'm just saying header component because it's definitely different than header, right? Because this is inside of the layout, whereas this is inside header. So our goal next is to replace this static text with this component. So we're going to go into layout.js. We want to import our header from, now we have to think about where we're at in our folder structure. We're inside the layout folder. So I wouldn't do like // because there's no folders to go down into at this point. So I have to go up a folder. So I go // and VS Code's really good about telling you where you are as you're typing. So I want to go into header / and then you can just click on them if you want. Header. So I go up a directory, I go into header directory, and I grab the header file. And then I'm going to replace this with a self-closing header tag.
Lee wants to know if you can add the header file side by side.
Let me get back to my chat. Close my chat when I stop sharing. Add header side by side.
Like the
Yeah,
file.
you're going fast and we're like, still typing and you're jumping into the next file.
Fast and I can't.
I can't, with my thumb and my carpal tunnel, I'm like,
I'll just keep layout open.
yeah. And we need to see header though, because we were still doing something in header.
It's on the left, Carolyn.
Yep, so header's right here. Let me close footer so there's no confusion.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at two screens and they're different sides. Okay, thank you.
Yep, so we're importing header from up a directory into header folder, and then the header file. And then we're rendering the header tag. And we should see that component rendered on the screen.
So you didn't type anything else on that page. Okay. And then the
This is
header
what we should all be seeing.
layout.
Close that. All right, so next, we'll do the same thing with footer that you did with header. In fact, to save yourself some time, copy all of the header.js code, go into footer, paste it, and just rename it. Because it's honestly just going to be the same thing. And then inside layout, you can literally copy the header line and change it to say footer and do the same thing. You're going to replace this with footer. So we're literally just doing the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except now I can't type. What's going on? Oh, shut up, man.
So give everyone a minute here. So the end result should be, your header component, whatever that happens to be, whatever text you're rendering, page body, which still lives inside our layout, and then our footer, which lives inside our footer. And then just make a thumbs up when you're good to go. See lots of thumbs ups. Okay. I'll leave these on the screen as we go here. But if you're still working on header and footer, they're identical other than the name at this point. So now we need to figure out, okay, well, that's cool, but what else can I put in here, right? What other components would I possibly put in there? What other component already exists that I definitely want to render as a page body? Or homepage, right? So let's import that. Let's import homepage from, go up a directory into homepage.
Joey, I think you muted yourself. We can't hear anything you're saying, but I see your lips moving.
I'm not muted. Can anyone else hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, that was weird. Can you hear me now?
I
Alina?
can't, sorry, it was me.
Oh. All right. So yeah.
But
So
can you repeat what you said, because I couldn't hear what you were saying.
we're going to import homepage the same way we imported header and footer, right? Because that's a page body and we want to render the page body. So here, instead of page body, we'll just put homepage. And this is what we should see. Our header component, which is just some text, our homepage, which still does the same thing. And our footer component down here. That's what we should be seeing. And the only thing we've really done is just created some components and created like a wrapper component called layout, where we're rendering those things inside there, right? Layout's telling us where we should render things. And so now we're starting to see the semblance of some sort of page, right? So it's starting to get cool. But now it's like, okay, well, these pages are dynamic, right? We need links to navigate around. So let's navigate between, let's say, the home page and what will eventually be called the search page, which is shop. When we go shopping, let me pull that up. When we go to shop, what is this, right? Let's take a look. Let's inspect. Go to elements. I'll just click anywhere on this page. It doesn't matter. We can see that, okay, this is the search page, right? Makes sense. We're searching for products. We'll see results come back once we make a request. So let's create the search page. It's not going to have any results yet, but we want to be able to navigate between homepage and search page via some sort of link inside the header, right? So we want to tie this all together, because once we figure that out, then it's just a matter of adding more links and adding more pages, right? As far as structure goes. So let me close this, move this out of the way. All right, so search page, again, we're going to do the same thing as homepage, really. We're going to go to our components folder, create a new folder called search page. And inside search page folder, we'll create a new file called, you guessed it, searchpage.js. Where's my cursor? Oh, there it goes. Search page.js. This over here, so we can still see layout in case anyone's working on that. And again, we're going to do the same thing that we did with like header and footer. So feel free to go into header or footer, paste it into search page. And just rename things. We'll call this search page. Let me see, is this going to take? It's not going to take props, but that's okay. And we'll just say search page component, just so we know. Again, you'll come over to layout and you're going to import search page the same way that you imported homepage. And you can literally just copy, paste, rename. So I was able to rename each of these all at the same time. Did Matt show you that trick? So you're going to love this. So if you double click, let me undo that. You copy and paste a line, and all you want to do is change every instance of this word. You double click on the first instance, you hit Command D, like dog. That'll see how the second one highlighted. If I hit Command D again, the third one highlighted. All these are selected. VS Code knows that the next thing you do, it's going to affect all of these. So now you can just start typing search page, and it'll replace all those instances with whatever you type. It's a huge time saver. And you're going to see that when we do some Bootstrap to React conversion in a little bit.
So did you want us to create a search folder with search.js or
Yep,
search?
so search
Okay.
page
I must
folder.
have missed that part. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep, inside components, we have search page folder and a search page JS file. And you can literally just copy, paste, rename. We just want to get these on the screen so we can navigate between them. If your import is grayed out, it's because you're not referencing. See, mine's grayed out. Search page is grayed out because I don't have any reference to that in the file yet. I'm just importing it at this point. Right, so as soon as I come in here and say like search page, oops. See how it's not grayed out anymore? It's because now there's a reference to it, right? So if I remove that, that's an indication that, hey, you're not using this thing. You sure you want that there, right? So if you start like editing files and you're taking things out, adding things in, just look at the top of your import statements and you can see exactly what you are and what you're not using, right? Or if you're like, hey, I know I'm using this thing on this page. Oh, maybe I'm not. I didn't actually insert my tag yet, right? And so maybe that's why you're in a debugging thing. It's like, why isn't my thing showing up? I imported it and it's gray, which means I didn't actually use it yet. So little contextual things like that VS Code gives you is super, super helpful, right? In the beginning, this wasn't a thing. And so you'd have to know, right? Or search the file.
Is it technically when you put it in the self-closing tag there, is that like when you're saying it's rendering to the screen?
Any reference to it whatsoever in the file, right? So I could say something like const something equals search page. And because I referenced it, it says, oh, you're importing it and you're using it. That's the wrong usage, but you're still importing it and using it, right? But if there's no references to it in the file, then it grays out and it says, you're not using this anywhere. You sure you want to keep this import statement
Because
here?
it has nowhere to go.
Right, exactly. It's completely useless, right? You're just
Right.
adding more kilobytes to your file at this point. Oop, there we go. Okay, so, well, let's put search page in there. And let's see what this looks like. This looks terrible. Got a header, a home page, and a search page at the same time. We need to be able to switch between these things. So is everyone basically at this point where they've got basically all the same component files with just different names? See lots of thumbs ups, lots of head nods. Awesome. Okay, so now let's switch between these things. So this is what's called routing. And there's a lot of ways to do routing. The simplest form of routing is by using a piece of local state that when the user clicks on something, you change that local state, and that local state determines what is viewed on the screen at any given time. That is the ultra simplified way to do it. But even though it's simple at first, like if you're only switching between two components, that's fine. But we're going to have multiple pages, right? The user's going to be clicking on links. They're going to be clicking on vacation package images. We don't want to like manage some piece of state. Like that just gets way overwhelming. We would have to have all these pieces of state. That's just not fun. Nobody likes that. So we're going to import an NPM package. It's going to be a React library called React Router. And that's going to handle all of our routing for us. It's going to make it super simple so that we can actually go in. Now, if I go over to the completed application, if I click shop, you see the URL says search. If I click home, my URL is updated. Now in React, like if this was anything other than a React single page application structure, we're actually going to very different files. But in this, we're not. We're actually updating the URL, and the application knows where we should be. I can literally go up to here, remove it, and go to the page I want. I could go to wiki. I can go to the page I want. But you notice, watch what happens. When I go to search, see how everything refreshed? Everything refreshed. But if I do it here, it's seamless. React Router does that for us so that we don't have the whole page reload thing. What React Router is really doing is managing a piece of state somewhere. It's doing all the hard work, all the tedious work for us, and we get the benefit of getting updated URLs and navigations that are smooth and silky. You can even add CSS animations in here if you wanted the page to like slide off to the right or something like that. You could totally do all that stuff. And React Router lets you do that without having that whole page reload, because that's really janky, right? It's like, that's jarring. I'm going to search and then, whoa, right? Now, unless your application is structured that way and it makes sense, that's fine. But this application is really light, it's really lean, and we shouldn't have to see whole page refreshes, right? A giant e-commerce site would not behave this way typically, right? And Caitlin can attest to that. She sees a lot of page refreshes and reloads. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to import a package called React Router. But there's a couple different React routers. In fact, let me go to, well, actually, let me get rid of this. Go here. Keep it all in one place. All right, so I'm going to go to React Router, which is literally reactrouter.com. Now, there's two different types of routers. There's one for the web and then one for native. So if you work in React Native, which is working on like actual like Android devices or iPhones and things like that, then you'd want the native router. But we're working in a web application, so we want web. And here's what it tells you what you need to do to get started. So we need to npm install React Router DOM, right? So the React Router is the package, but DOM specifically references the browser because only the browser has a DOM. Your Android or iPhone, it does, when you go to like a browser, well, not say the browser, but if you go to a native application that runs on the phone, there's no DOM. It's native like Java or Swift or whatever the application code is, right? There's no browser. There's something that looks like a browser sometimes, and you can run browsers on the phone, but since we're working in a web browser, we want the React Router DOM package. So we're literally going to copy this. We're going to come over to our terminal, and inside our terminal, we're going to hit Control-C because we want to stop the server from running, because we won't be able to do anything if it's running. It's going to ignore us. So you should see, so if I hit enter a few times, I should see just my cursor, right? So remember Command-C, Control-C, not Command-C. So next to the function key. Make sure it's not running. And then we're going to paste this right in here, npm install React Router DOM, and hit enter. That'll install React Router for us. This may take a minute or two. And then once you're at this point and it's installing it, just give me a thumbs up so I know that we're all at least on the same screen. Cool, cool. All right. This is where you go play the game of chess. Back. Oh, no, maybe not. It's a quick game of chess. All right, so here we said added a bunch of packages, tells us about our vulnerabilities again. We're going to ignore this for now, right? Because again, we're not deploying this anywhere. Okay, so now we could say, now that we've installed it, to verify that we've installed it, inside, not the source folder, but inside the class project working folder, if we click on package.json, we should see React Router DOM inside here. In fact, I think, nope, it's the same version. I thought they upped the version since the last time. One second. All right, so 1 second.
I'm not sure what I did between the last couple of steps, but I can't connect to the local host again. It says Safari can't connect to the server anymore.
Right, because we killed the server.
Oh, duh. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna restart it.
That was pretty dumb. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry. In fact, that was the next step. So after we verify that we see it in our package JSON, we can close that. Come back down here. 1 second. Sorry about that. My kid's like banging on the door. All to give me a note. Okay, so all right. So now where were we? Oh, yeah, we gotta restart our server. So we go down here, we type npm start again. And that'll start up our server. It'll relaunch our browser. And we should see the exact same thing we were seeing before. There we go.
So I got a message that says something is already running on port 3000. Would you like to run the app on another port instead? Yes or no? If I click yes.
Oh, so you
would I
didn't
have to
actually,
restart?
so that means you didn't actually stop the server.
See, that's weird because I thought I did, and then I couldn't connect to the server anymore.
Interesting. So in your terminal, is that what's showing you in your terminal?
Yeah, it's in my terminal.
Okay, so in your terminal, hit Command or hit Control C.
Okay.
You should see a caret with a C, capital C.
Yep.
So yes. Okay, so now type npm start again. I may have misspoke and said Command C when I should have said Control C.
No, you definitely said Control C, and it's
Okay.
doing the same thing. It's the same message. Should I shut the whole thing down?
That means, do you have any other VS Codes open?
I mean, I have tons of VS Codes open, but like not this one.
Check any of the others to make sure you're not also running a server on those.
Okay.
Because that would be the only reason, is that some other server is running. There was.
Are we at the CD demo app yet?
Oh, there's a. I'm sorry, what?
Are we at the CD demo app step yet?
CD demo.
Yeah, the link that Caitlin posted
Oh.
shows all the steps.
Oh, that's if you were to use their package as an example. We're not going to use their package. So all we wanted to do was import React Router DOM, and we're going to.
Oh, okay. I was busy trying to code and I didn't get that. Can somebody throw it in the chat and I'll do it? It's
Yeah,
going-
I posted the link so you could copy that npm like.
Right, I have, from the link you sent, there's an npm install React Router DOM.
Yep, that's all you needed from that.
Yeah, all we need is this right here.
Oh, I did the create
Oh, okay.
app
Yeah, so
demo.
this.
I would thought that seemed silly because I thought we already did it, but it was happy
Yeah.
anyway. So I just want to do the install React Router DOM
Just
in the
this.
folders, in the source folder, or at the very top of the,
No, inside your class project working folder.
in the work. Okay, great. Thank you. Got it.
And then someone raised their hand. I think it was Dominique.
Yeah, it was about the local host, and she did 300. When we first did it, I actually did the same thing, and mine was at it was 3001. And I just wanted to know if that made any difference, because I know I was playing around with it before and I got the right one when I was just playing around with it when we first were doing it.
Yeah, so the port just determines where the server's gonna, send all of its data to. So if it says 3000 or 3001, that doesn't really matter in this case. It's just that whenever you write npm start, whatever it tells you the port number should be, you need to be on that port in your browser to see your application.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So as long as you can see your application and you're making changes to your components and you see those changes happening, you're good to go.
No, it won't do it.
How are we all doing? We all have,
No.
y'all see the React Router DOM install go by? Cool. All right, let's do this. Now, we're going to,
do it for me.
we're only going to keep layout.js open for now. In fact, no, I lied. We're going to keep header open as well. So let me put these side by side. Now we want to be able to navigate between different pages. And so React Router does that for us. It gives us a mechanism to do it. So what I'm going to do is highlight all of these. And well, yeah, I'm just going to remove those. I'm not going to save my file yet though. So otherwise my JSX can get all one line again. And I lost my notes. There they are. Okay. So now in order to use React Router, we have to import it into our component file. In fact, I'll just move this over for a second. And to do that, we'll write a new import statement. So import, open and close curlies. And I'm just going to say from React router DOM. That's all I'm going to do right now. The nice thing about VS Code is that it's going to give us helpers as we start typing in here. Now that it already knows which package I'm going to try to import stuff from, we'll be able to see autocomplete on some of the text as we start typing it out. All right, so what we want to import, there's 3 different things. One is browser router. We can see it right there, browser router, comma, route, just ROUTE, and then comma, switch. We want to import these 3 things. I'm going to talk about what these are. But before I do that, after browser router, I'm going to put space as router with a capital R. And I'll talk about this syntax, and what this means. Did you guys go over this sort of syntax with Max at all? Probably not, because he probably would have left it for me. Okay, so what's happening here is we know that we're importing from React Router DOM, and we're importing named exports because we're using the curly braces within our import statement. But what we can do is when we import something by name, we can refer to it as something else in our file, right? So as we're working inside here, browser router, to me, sounds a little like, what is that thing, right? What is that thing really doing? Am I routing between browsers? What am I doing here? I just want a router, so I can call it router. And the way to do that is I say import browser router as this thing. And now this component will live inside this variable instead. That's all that's really doing. I'm renaming the variable to something else. This is especially important if you have your own, let's say you have your own router for handling small little things inside your components. But you want to use React Router for other things, like navigating through pages. So you can import your router from somewhere and import React Router's router from somewhere. But if they're called the same thing, you can rename them so you can have references to those specific things within your file. So there's no name collisions, because I can't import something else called browser router. That'll fail, right? It's like, oh, you already imported that thing. That's not going to work. So this is one way to get around that sort of thing. Is that a question from someone, Caitlin?
Yeah, I guess Carolyn's, I don't really understand.
Control C. Okay, so.
Oh,
Control click to choose the folder. Yep, so you can.
I'm having, I don't know why, except that when I pulled it down and put it in my own code folder, I only brought class project folder working into VS Code because I didn't need all the other stuff. And
Right.
now if I select it and I right click, I don't get the option to open it in the terminal, and I need to do that to do the step you guys just did.
Oh, because if that's the only folder,
It has,
you're already in.
above it.
you're already
Okay.
in the root folder.
Sorry, I didn't
Okay.
understand
No,
that.
no, I was wondering about that, but
So all
in
you
order to
have to
do
do-
what you guys are doing now, I kind of have to have this terminal thing done, right? So, all right, no problem. I got it. I just was like, what? Okay, I thought that might be it. Thank you.
Right here, you just have to do this. Terminal, new terminal, and you'll get, if that's your root folder, you'll be at the root folder.
Oh, it doesn't have to be integrated. Okay. Woo, thank you.
The only reason I'm doing that is because I'm inside the Careers in Code repository.
Okay, and I'm right. Okay, great.
And
Thank
class
you. And
project working is definitely not the root of that
then-
project. So.
Yeah, and that's that link Caitlin said with that second bit of code, because I did the first by mistake. That's what I want to do, right? With the I gotta
Correct.
pull it up.
All right, so
Yeah, thank you.
For the remainder of, let's see, we got about 20 minutes left. So I want to make sure that we're switching between pages before the end of class. Homepage JS file.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I did after I disconnected and everything. Everything's just been gone downhill since then.
So how about this? Let me demonstrate this last part, and then
That's
afterwards
fine. I can always copy the code later on.
Yep. All right. So now that we're importing our browser router as the router, just to make it, our minds know what it is, just to show you some more syntax. Really, this is another way to do things. We're importing a route and a switch. So how do these things work? Well, the way this works is whatever you want to route within your application, you have to have it as a child of router, because router is not going to know about anything that's in its parent, right? It only knows about things below it or within it, really. So I would come in here and I'd say router. It's an opening and closing tag because router accepts children. It can accept any child whatsoever, but there's also specific children that it accepts as well. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to wrap, just to make it more apparent, I'm going to wrap my layout component in router. So router is going to be, instead of returning a div, I'm returning a router that happens to have my layout component within it, right? So layout is literally going to be the router. It's literally going to dictate whatever's shown on the screen. Make sense? So this div is a child of router. Inside my layout div, because I want it at the top, I'm going to put header. And because I want it at the bottom, I'm going to put footer. And now I have, between these two components here, I have a way to route between different pages. So the way that works is you start with switch. We're going to create a switch component. That's an open and close, because that also accepts children. And the children it accepts are the different routes that you can take within your application. So the first child of switch will be a route. These are self-closing, or they can be self-closing. For now, we'll do an open and closing tag. I'll keep this simplified. We're going to have route. And right now we want to route between two pages. We want to route between home page and between the search page. So I'm going to create two routes, just like that. Let's separate them out so we can clearly see them. The first route, let's put in our, what do we want to put here? Let's put in our search page. So we're going to put search page like that. And in our second route, we'll do home page like that. And I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to come over here. And you'll notice both of them are still on the screen. We haven't really told router what to do with these yet. All we're doing is saying, hey, I've got some components that can handle switching between routes, but I haven't told those routes what to look for. Those routes are going to be paying attention to what's in our address bar up here. In fact, all it's rendering right now is search page components. Because, oh, okay, yeah, I know why. All right. So we haven't told, in fact, this is one thing it just reminded me. So in JavaScript, when code is being evaluated, it evaluates it top down to start, right? So what does it first do when it comes to this? It says, well, there's a switch, there's a route, and there's a second route. Well, this reminded me about one thing about React Router is that the first route that matches what's in the URL, that's the route that's going to be shown. There's more configuration we need to do, which is what I was alluding to earlier. But this route comes before this one. So what this switch statement is doing is it's saying, hey, let's take a look at the URL. And I see we have, okay, localhost 3000. We're at our root. We're basically at slash. We don't have a page designated yet. So it's going to say, okay, let me find the first route that matches slash, which is just root. It says, okay, well, I don't see anything with a slash in it. So I'm going to render the first thing I see that doesn't throw an error, basically, which happens to be this one. So search page component showing up. What happens if I do this? If I take this and move it above search page, that one shows up. Why? That's the first thing that matched what's in the URL. So if we want to switch between these two things, we need to tell these routes a little bit more information about when they should be rendering. So for the first route, we're going to give it a path prop. And that is a string. And we're going to tell it which path we should be looking for in the URL in order to render our search page. So for us, it's going to be slash search. The slash is because from the root, which means from regular slash, search. So if I were to come up here, if I were to save this, and I come up here and I put slash search, I'm rendering the search component. Now, homepage, typically when you think of a homepage, where do you typically see that page? Well, if you go to a URL, let's say you go to www.careersandcode.org. What's the first thing that shows? Probably your homepage, right? So our homepage, let's see, do I need to CD before npm start? For you, no, you're already in your root directory, so you should be able to just type npm start, I would imagine. So if you go to careersandcode.org, you're at slash at that point. As far as the computer is concerned that's running the server, you're at slash, you're at root. So you don't need to tell it what page to go to, right? So I could technically leave it like this if it was the first route, because that's the first one that would match. But typically, your homepage would match as like the final, almost last resort, right? So you're going to look for other pages that match before it. And if they didn't type anything after slash, then you're going to route to your homepage. Okay, so in order to do that, we have to tell it that this is the homepage. So we're going to say path equals slash, but not just slash. Exactly slash. Exact is another prop we can give the route to say, hey, match this path exactly. If all that's in there is slash, we're going to go to the homepage. Does that make sense? If I leave exact out, well, first of all, let me put exact in. I'm going to place it above here. So homepage comes first. We've got path search. And I go to dots, just at slash, I see homepage. That's cool. I want to go to the search page now. So I know that's if I look here, path is slash search. Let me go to search. Why am I seeing the homepage? If we remember back to switch, it's going to match on the first thing that it matches with. Well, why is this homepage? Homepage came first. Exact path is slash. Well, I'm looking for search, but I'm getting to slash. Well, slash is part of search, right? So that could absolutely be rendered first. What if I do this first? I go to search. Oh, now I see search. Why? Because now, why didn't this do exact? Did I do that right?
Quick question. Is the path supposed to be on the route or on the page, or only when it's exact, you put it on the page?
That's why. Thank you. That's why my demonstration threw me off. Yeah. So exact path needs to be on the route. Thanks for catching that. I need more water. Dehydrated. All right. So people rewatching this are going to be like, "No, what are you doing? No, you got to go back." So thanks for pointing that out. All right. So exact path. Let's go back to my demonstration. All right. So now clearly, in fact, let's take off exact. This is really the demo. This will prove it out. So if I go to /search, well, homepage shows up because slash is part of /search, right? It's going to match the first thing. It's going to show the first thing that matches what's in the URL. Well, slash, cool. Here's slash. I'll do that. It's going to ignore everything else. First in wins, right? So in order to alleviate that, we say exactly slash. Now I'm hitting the right thing, right? So there we go. So I'm going to just also, to really hammer this home, I'm going to leave it, search comes first and homepage comes next. I can see that search is rendering. I get rid of this. I'm at slash, homepage is rendering. So now we're actually rendering two different pages, quote unquote pages, right? What are we at? We're almost at time. Cool, we got enough time. So now let's put some links up in the header component so that we can navigate with links instead of typing, because nobody wants to do this, right? They just want to click a link. Except if you're like me and I navigate through different sites just to explore what they got. But your average user is not going to want to update the URL. They just go to whatever it is, .com or .org, and they click links to navigate around your site. So let's implement some links. So inside of header, okay, so right now we don't technically need to worry about layout at this point. We just need to update the header. Now, typically, inside, we would put like an anchor tag, right? We'd say home and anchor tag, search, right? And you give it an href attribute, if you remember, right? So href equals slash and href equals search. So let's take a look at that. Oh, I see home and search. Cool, I got some links. Let's click home. All right, let's click search. Nice, but did you notice something? When I click this, what happens? I don't know if Zoom, the lag in Zoom is going to demonstrate exactly. It reloads the entire page. We don't want to do that. We want to have a nice seamless transition between pages. So how can we do that? Well, React Router gives us some tools to do that. In fact, we can come down here. We can look at their example. Let's look at the basic example. All we're really implementing is their basic example. It takes us to Code Sandbox. Look at that. See, everyone uses Code Sandbox. It's the cool thing to do, right? If I, where do I get my, there it is. Okay, cool. So when you import stuff from, see, they're even doing this browser router as router. In fact, I think I literally copy pasted their basic demo for some of this stuff. Look, oh, there's a link. We can import a link component. And guess what? Link knows exactly how to handle page transitions within React Router. So React Router gives us a tool that we can use to navigate through the different routes that we have available, that we designate. So cool. So let's come back over here. And inside header, because that's where we want our links to be, we're going to import link, link from React Router DOM. Give everyone a minute, catch up there. Okay. So now, instead of hrefs, we can replace this with link. So they're not A tags anymore, they're link tags, link components. Now there's a very specific order you have to do these in. And what I mean by that, header is already a child of router, right? And since link is a child of header, this is going to work. If I were to put a link outside, like in the parent component to router, it's not going to work. Link has to be a child of router in order for those two to connect together properly, okay? So you're going to find that with a lot of different libraries where you import the base library component, and then within that component is where you use all their other subcomponents, right? Because link has a contextual link, for lack of a better word, with router itself. So if router doesn't see link as a child, it's not going to know about it, and it's just going to ignore it. All right, so link also takes a prop. It's not href, it's to. We're literally going to link to this URL, link to slash. For search, we're going to link to slash search. Save that. And now, no more page reloads. We're navigating seamlessly between two different quote unquote pages, right? Everyone see that? So the magic, quote unquote magic of React Router, I'll explain what the quote unquote magic is as we go along. I'll get into that a little bit tomorrow. But just know that for now, as long as your switches, your routes, and your links are children of router, everything's going to do what they're supposed to do, as long as you give them the right props, you put them in the right space. All right, cool. So, hey, this is cool. We have an app that we can navigate through different pages on just by clicking some links. So we didn't have to write new HTML documents or anything. We're just changing components. All right. Everyone cool? Cool for now? If you want to rewatch it, rewatch it.
One quick question
Yep.
about React in general. So is React better for smaller websites or larger websites? Like, is there a certain thing that it is best suited for?
That's a fantastic question. And if you ask 10 developers, you'll get 500 different answers.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. This is the way, my personal opinion, React is fantastic for creating targeted user interfaces. And what do I mean by that? I mean that for this application, it's a very small application. Not only it's because, I'm teaching you how to use React, but it's a very small application, right? So React is fine for that. It's very targeted. It's only doing, it's displaying these things. Everything else comes from the backend. All the data, what the user does eventually with their packages when they order them. React doesn't care about that. All it's doing is displaying stuff, right? That's what it's best for just displaying a user interface. You can also use it on larger e-commerce websites where React is literally just displaying some components, but all that data still lives on the backend, right? There's still in a database, it's still in API endpoints. All React does, and all it was designed to do, was just to display things on the screen that users can interact with, right? So if you have an application where you have things that users need to interact with, hey, guess what? You can use React, right? So you can use that on native devices with React Native. There's different components. It's not, you don't have divs and things like that anymore. They're called something else. I think they're called views. But aside from the name of the components, it's doing the same thing. It's just rendering some stuff on the screen that the user can look at, interact with, and things like that. So React is literally just the view part of your whole application. It's what you see on the screen. You can use it for more. It doesn't have to be that, right? So I'm using it for routing, right? We're learning a little bit about that. But in the end, routes are just managing the views anyways, right? I could have a completely separate mechanism for handling routing, which I've helped create for multiple different types of applications, right? So the last one I worked for, and Caitlin can attest, we don't use React Router for routing between, or I shouldn't say we, it's not we anymore. Caitlin doesn't use React Router for navigating between different pages of the public-facing website at Raymore and Flynn, right? React Router is used in certain situations for certain contextual data, but that's it. It doesn't route anything, right? It just access to data within the URL is really all it's being used for. All the routing happens through a .NET MVC framework, where when you go to a specific / whatever .html, that is a completely separate document that is not tied to any other page whatsoever. It's literally a separate document that renders only what it's supposed to render. It's completely separate. It still renders React code, but that code is not tied to anything else. It's separate. It's just the view, what the user sees. Does that explain it?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
I think that's a really good point too that you make, Joey, is that like on bigger projects and sites and like different places that you'll work, you're going to have like combined code. Like you're going to have like more than one method to achieve whatever goal where you work for is trying to achieve. So the fact that we use .NET MVC and React combined is a good example of how they can work together and do different things.
Yep. So where I work now, there's a Python backend that serves up, HTML, and then we use React to render the stuff on the screen. But it's a completely different technology from .NET. All React does in both situations is just render the stuff, right? We're just rendering components on the screen that the users can click on, order things with, or manage, whatever they need to manage through the application. But yeah, React is just your view layer. Is really, so there's a MVC is a popular framework pattern called model view controller. Your model is your data. Your view is, your view, and the controller handles the two. It says, given this view, which data should I show on the screen? The V for view is React. React does the V part. It just shows the view. That's all it does, right? It doesn't
just.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a little more seamless than just having lots of HTML pages and links in between, right? It's just.
This is, yeah. So what we're doing here with React Router, it makes it a more seamless, pleasing experience. We could absolutely put different HTML pages with different React, bundle JS files, and we could make it work. But this is a lot smoother. It's a lot nicer. As a user, I would appreciate this experience more than every page reloading if it's a small application, right? So the fact that I can do this is also testament to the types of view manipulation you can do in React. So it's also, a lot of people use React Router for a lot of different projects. So it's a good thing to know. It's a good thing. You're going to see it out there for sure. People love React Router. And it makes our pages look nice when we go back and forth. There's also the pretty factor. It's a pretty application, hopefully. Any last questions? Okay, so for homework tonight, we're not going to do homework per se tonight. What I would kind of suggest you try is just recreating what we just did. Like maybe save this file off somewhere, rename it to something else, and try retyping it out, just so you can get to the same end result of navigating between a couple different pages. Or if you want, we are going to be creating a cart page. Do I have that as product card? Yeah, there's going to be a cart page. Do you want to you want to try that, just create another search page type component, label it cart page, and try to get that to render up in your links up here. Maybe try that out. We'll have to create it anyway, so that'll give you some good practice if you want to take that route. But other than that, I would just say, rename, or even if you want to delete the your search page or homepage component, not homepage, don't delete that one. Like footer or header, and retype it out just to get used to typing it. You could do that, or just, I'm going to upload this down to the repo tonight so that tomorrow by, let's see, so you'll be able to pull the latest from the Careers in Code repository by 4 p.m. tomorrow. I'll do that so that you have plenty of time before class to pull the latest. And so we'll all be on the same page. So tomorrow when we open up our projects, it's going to look like this. So we're all at the same spot. But in the meantime, just practice.
Joey, I have just a question. I just want to double check. So I'm not sure where I messed up, but I did get the npm install React router DOM. So after I pull from the GitHub repo tonight or tomorrow, I won't have to reinstall it, will I?
Correct, you won't have to.
Okay.
In fact, we're going to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Tomorrow, once you pull the latest in class, we'll all do an npm install together, and we'll make sure that everything renders the way it should. Sound good?
And if we did want to go ahead and make the cart, is there a certain spot that you want us to create the cart in? Like, does it need to be, of course, like above the footer, but.
So if you look in the component, this cart page is going to be similar to search page in the fact that it should live in the same type of hierarchy. So given search page, where would we put cart page, right? We'd create a folder inside components, right? And inside the cart page folder, we would make a cart page component. Make sense?
Joey?
Yeah.
I've been having a back and forth with Caitlin trying to help me with some stuff with that npm install. She's got to get home and tuck her kids into bed, and probably you do too, but do you have a couple minutes at the end of class to just try and figure out, or we just start over tomorrow?
I'll have a few minutes.
Okay.
I got some children tending to do as well.
Yeah. I remember those days. My children is college now, but it's one of those failed to compile things, and I did fix a few of the errors that it told me, but I don't know if you can see something quick, or it won't hurt anything if I just let it sit at night.
Like 5 minutes after I close down the stream.
Yeah, except there'll be a screen share.
Right, that's fine. Yep. So any other questions before I kill the YouTube streaming? No. Okay. So I will see you all back here tomorrow. Practice creating some components and trying to get them to render in some links, and then tomorrow we'll pull latest, and we'll all be on the same page.
Don't forget the 30-second feedback, everyone.
Oh yes, 30-second surveys. Yes, I'm going to be really bad at remembering that. Thank you, Caitlin.
That was me.
Oh, that was you. Sorry. Thank you.
I was about to get the link anyway.
Good job. At least everyone's mind's on the same.
Yeah. I'm exhausted. All right. So I'll see you all back tomorrow.
Okay.
Stop share.
And you're coming back for punishment, huh?